Hi, Tom.
Hey, Elma.
How are you doing?
They're actually doing very well, thank you. Yeah, it's the sun's shining, and it's a not a busy day at the utility here. So happy to chat with you.
I am so excited for this conversation. So let's jump right in. The world is shut down, and we've got this new understanding of what it means to be essential versus non-essential. I cannot think of an industry and of a company locally that is more essential than Wisconsin Energy Group. And so talk to me about how you've been dealing with being one of the most vital parts of how we'll experience the quarantine.
Well, let me say first of all, Elma, I am genuinely privileged. Thank you for the opportunity to chat with you. Yeah, I mean, WE Energies is unique in that it is an essential service, and you think about this pandemic, all of the critical services that we need, from hospitals to grocery stores to everything else that's essential while we continue to operate. Having electricity and gas is clearly critical, and so we're privileged in many ways. And I think about the economy and the impacts this pandemic is having. And I look at our own organization. We really are privileged as well as being essential. We still have a service to provide, and I think about all of the other companies and organizations that have been so hard hit. We are very privileged in that respect.
Tom, you all are a utility, but you're also a business. And most businesses were frankly not prepared for the experience of a global pandemic. Can you talk to me about how you all prepared yourselves as an operation and how you were prepared as a thriving, successful business?
Well, perhaps more than ever, I would say reliability is critical for us. So we have, as you would imagine, business continuity plans and emergency response plans, and we regularly drill those plans. We regularly practice those plans to ensure that if we have an event like this, that we are ready and we're prepared. So one of the things that we did right off the bat is establish the what's called the IMT. We call it the IMT. It's the Incident Management Team. And that's a group of the key leaders within the organization that came together or come together still every day. We meet in the mornings and we review, it started out 7 days a week to review the critical issues that we had in front of us and the planning that we needed to put into place. And as I was thinking about this interview this morning, I couldn't help but think about the meeting that we had as a group of officers the few days before we set up the IMT. It was March the 12th, and it was the last face-to-face meeting that I had with my fellow officers in the boardroom. At that meeting, we were talking about the pandemic and the planning that we needed to put in place and the changes that were coming to our organization. That was a Thursday. We talked about establishing remote work plans by the following Monday, establishing the plans. Well, things moved so fast between that Thursday and the balance of the week and into the weekend that we actually implemented the plan. So by Monday, we were working remotely. We went from Thursday face-to-face, we went to full remote, 80% of our workforce working remotely, working from home, working from out of their vehicles if they're field employees and what have you, in the space of just a few days. That's the challenge. It just moves so fast. And having an IMT, having that instant command center to be able to manage through all of the change and being able to meet regularly across the senior leadership was absolutely critical.
That's an impressive response time. It's fascinating that you all were preparing to prepare and immediately had to, were called up into action. I wonder, how do you see this affecting the future of how you all do business? Do you expect to continue that remote strategy indefinitely, or?
Well, it's a good question. We're actually just starting to think about now, what does the future look like? And this is one of those, incidents, I will say, that you really aren't responding to the challenge you have immediately in front of you. You're always responding to what's coming next week. I mean, I had a conversation with a colleague of mine who works for the New York Power Authority, and obviously the New York Power Authority, big impacts in New York. They've actually what's called sequestered their employees, and which means safe harbor their employees. They've got them in lockdown in control centers to ensure that they have full protection, that they're not exposing their employees to COVID-19 outside of the workplace. They're sleeping 24 hours a day, working out of the control rooms. And he said to me, and I think this is obvious, but he said to me, the people who are going to be sick next week are healthy this week. And so you always have to be thinking what's coming next, because you can't tell the week you're in. So you got to be thinking ahead. And so right now we've started thinking about, what does this look like as we start to bring our workers back, as we start to recover from this, and we start to look, 2, 3, 4 weeks ahead, a month ahead, 2 months ahead. What are we going to return to? Is it going to go back to the old system of working, or are we going to learn from this experience? In fact, maybe there's some different ways to execute our work and be successful, even more successful with this experience.
So, when I think of utilities, I think of a business based on decades. You all make significant infrastructure investments that pay off 10, 20, often 30 years into the future. You weren't necessarily designed for rapid response, for frankly, quick innovation, rapid prototyping, and on-the-fly management. What have you personally done to prepare yourself for this style of leadership?
Well, that's interesting. Well, before I go there, though, Elmer, I did want to mention, and I meant to mention it right up the front, that one of the things that's so important for us is the safety and the health of our employees and, of course, our customers. So in partway answer to your question, we've been thinking really hard about how to protect our employees in working in this new environment. What new methods can we put in place? Obviously, everyone's following the CDC guidance on hygiene and on social distancing. But the challenges that this creates in continuing to deliver the essential services and continuing to install the critical infrastructure we need, continuing to respond to emergencies, most critical when we have things like gas leaks in people's homes. How are we going to make sure that we can protect our employees who are having to enter homes and in some cases businesses where there are known COVID-19 individuals in the premise? So they have been some of the challenges we've had. Again, protecting our employees is critical, making sure they've got the right protective equipment on, that they have the Twivex suits, the N95 respirators, the nitrile glove, all of that in a time when all of that equipment is so difficult to get. I mean, hospitals need it as a priority. So it's just very, very challenging keeping our employees working, delivering the business services that we need to provide, and keeping everybody safe.
And again, how have you, are you reading? Are you reaching out to? You've talked about reaching out to a peer in New York, but are you trying to do peer learning? I mean, this is an altogether different style of management and leadership than I suspect your career has asked of you. How are you staying?
That's a very good question, and you nailed it with a comment about reaching out to others. In fact, I had a call this week with other Wisconsin utility leaders, and we're talking about each of us talked about the work that we're doing, the work that we've stopped doing. We are able, for example, we've been able to stop certain activities that greatly reduce and in many cases eliminate the need for us to enter people's homes. So that's really important. We are, talking to utilities outside of the state as well. We're tracking, we're part of the American Gas Association. We're part of the EEI. Many organizations, industry organizations that we can plug into, and we do plug into regularly to make sure that we're doing the right thing, we're being consistent, and we're staying in front of this.
So we're having this conversation while you are in your office downtown.
Right.
Where do you live?
I live on the east side on Shorewood, and my wife works as well, and my 3 teenage kids are all at home. So sometimes it's easy, especially when I've got an interview to do, to be here. And yeah, the technology allows this. So this has been very good.
And would you mind sharing, given the disruption to your normal working schedule, what practices have you added? What routines have you developed in order to stay productive, stay focused?
Yeah, well, I joke a little bit. In the old days, if you were late for a meeting, you could walk fast, right, or drive fast, assuming you're staying within the limit, of course, but you could catch up. With now, in the new world we're in, the meetings are back to back to back, and there is no time in between, right, because you're going from one virtual meeting to another. So that is, that is a challenge. Time management is definitely an issue, and so we've got to keep on top of that. I think the technology we have has really helped out, and so we can, we have all the same tools we had before plus. For me personally, my wife and I, we have a schedule. In fact, it all goes up on the board, right? Who's cooking tonight, and and how are we coping at home, and those things are important too. We've got to maintain, good management of our home life outside of work as well, and that's always a challenging balance.
And with school-age kids, have you joined the teaching workforce since they're homeschooling?
A little bit of that, I will say. There's all 3 of them are doing their online schooling right now, so that's been interesting. And then keeping them entertained outside of those hours is also interesting. But I have been really amazed, Elmer, at just how industrious Milwaukee is becoming in responding to this pandemic. I look at my wife, who's doing a ton right now in terms of supporting health organizations that need masks. And she figured out how, in addition to her normal day job, how to take air filters. These are high-grade air filters and turn them into surgical masks. And so she's working at home, and she's got friends of hers who have sewing machines and creating this small industry, if you like, to support our healthcare workers as they tackle this pandemic.
You bring up something that I really enjoy, which is, for me, the culture of Milwaukee and the greater Milwaukee area is defined by industriousness. There's some scrappiness, even in times of crisis. So it's quite obvious to everyone listening that you're not a native Milwaukeean. That is not a Sherman Park accent. So given your perspective as a new resident, what are you seeing as the ways Milwaukee is uniquely responding in this moment?
Well, thank you. Yes, no, I'm not from Milwaukee. Originally from the UK. My kids were all born here, though. I think that I will say that Midwesterners are very welcoming. They're very industrious. Obviously, we're living in an industrial city. They're inventive. They're extremely generous to each other and supportive of each other. I have been impressed by the quality, and I can talk specifically about WEC Energies here. My experience, and I've been at the company for 16 years now. And if I look at my career, spans about 30 years, I will say the talent that we have at WEC Energies, both the field talent, the folks who are actually keeping the electricity flowing and the gas flowing, but also the engineering, the management skill. We have such a great pool of talented professionals. And this pandemic, this crisis has brought out, and I say this sincerely, has really brought out the best in all of those people. So it's been wonderful to see how responsive everyone has been. And I could not be prouder working for the company.
Some of the CEOs I've talked to have described how this moment is not only a test of their company's culture, but in fact, it's an opportunity to bolster, support, and encourage that culture What are you all doing to do that for employees, especially now that people are working from home and with so much physical distance?
Well, one of the key things, and I know in the other interviews you've had, that other leaders have said the same, and I would agree that one key thing is communication. We've got to make sure that our employees are fully aware of and have the resources they need to be successful. So we are working very hard to keep them up to date, keeping web pages and intro sites up to date on all of the resources that we have, all of the policies that we need to put in place, the changes that we needed to make. So I think communication is key. I think walking the talk is important. I will tell you that for me, it's too easy to get bound up in the office in back-to-back meetings and not be out in the field enough. And I found myself this week thinking a lot about that. We have this, one of the things that we do as a company that, again, very drilled into us in the safety culture is so important, that we have what are called safety observations. And a safety observation is where one employee will observe another employee doing their normal tasks. And after that observation, they will talk to the employee that's being observed about the things that went well and the opportunities maybe to make that task even safer. And I can do more of those. Now, there's no reason why I can't be out now and again to visit our employees in the field as they go about their business. And I think that shares with the employees that we really care about them, that safety is critically important, and we're prepared to put time aside to make that happen. I haven't done enough. I'm going to be doing some more. My commitment to you, Elmar. There you go. I'm doing it today. So I will be out in the field more in the coming weeks.
Well, I'm excited that we could record that and measure your future success against that. So when I think of WE Energies, I think of, frankly, a business that defines itself by providing comfort, right? You keep us warm, you keep our homes bright, and you allow us to cook foods and so on. You know, I wonder in this moment when we're seeing record unemployment and the economy is really taking such a devastating hit, the ability to pay for such things is challenged for so many families in our region. How do you see that impacting the future of how WE Energies operates?
Well, let me say first, I do understand the challenges that our customers have, and with so many businesses shut down and the economy where it's at. And one of the things that WE Energies and Wisconsin Public Service has done, in fact, all of our utilities within the WEC Energy Group has done, is waive late payments and no disconnects during this crisis. So, you know, we're working with our customers to put in place payment plans, and they can always call us. Obviously, the customer service numbers are on our website, and we can make arrangements to help them if they are struggling to make payment. But no disconnects during this pandemic, and no new late fees will be imposed.
I think that's so important, but it does impact your ability to invest in future development. How are you all entering into those decisions?
So we, for the most part, we have, and you mentioned that we are an essential service. And for the most part, we have been able to continue with our critical investments, critical infrastructure projects are continuing. We have made changes to some of our work. Meter exchanges is an example where we're replacing a meter which has reached end of life. When we do that, if it's a gas meter, that requires us to shut off gas to make the meter exchange. We put the new meter on, and then ordinarily we would need to go inside the home to relight the appliances, so the furnaces and what have you. We've stopped that work because, you know, that's something that we can postpone. We can pick that up again, hopefully before the end of the year. But for most of the other work that we've got on the books is continuing. Again, we're working very differently. We're figuring out ways to stay 6 feet apart when we're working in crews and maintaining all of the other measures that we talked about with hygiene and PPE, protective equipment. So yeah, overall, Alma, I think we're executing our plan and not a huge impact from the pandemic in that respect.
So I have to ask you, you have this private audience with as many as 200 of our region's most influential leaders. What is the ask that you would make of them, and or what would you like for them to know in this extraordinary time?
Well, like I said before, I think I would ask them all to be thinking about not the immediate time you're in, but think about where we could be, where will we be in 2-3 weeks, or even 2-3 months from here. Structurally, I think the economy is strong. It has the potential to get right back to where it was. I'm encouraged that whilst we have a lot of industries that are currently shut down, or a lot of businesses that are shut down, there has been no investment decisions reversed. So we look at the Southeast Corridor in particular, and the area, in Milwaukee and South, and we're seeing all of those companies that made the commitments to Wisconsin. They've not backed away from those commitments, and we are in conversations with those organizations, and it's very encouraging that they are looking longer term. They are thinking about, yep, we're going to get through this, and there are better times ahead, and we are continuing with our plans. So I think it's important not to be discouraged. It's important to look at how we can recover from this. We can do it in a way that protects our employees, that ensures our employees, because let's face it, our employees are going to feel a little uncomfortable, as we start to pick the pen back up again and we start to bring people back into the workplace. We've got to be reassuring, and we've got to think about how to do that intelligently and fairly. So I think those are the challenges I would put to other leaders.
I think that's a fantastic challenge. I'd love to create an opportunity for you to make your most optimistic predictions, looking 2, 3, as many as 5 years into the future. How do you see life being better and different?
Well, from a workplace point of view, I think this is going to be a great learning experience for us, and I think there will be opportunities for us to work remotely successfully. That will, in fact, increase our productivity in areas that we would never have thought of before. So I think that's an encouragement. If I think about what benefits this crisis might have brought for us, it's those kinds of experiences. Again, I think there was nothing structurally wrong with the economy. So if you ask me about 2 to 3 years from now, I'm hopeful that we can get back to where we were. I'm hopeful that we can learn from this and continue. I think that the future is bright.
I really appreciate that message. So, Tom, just thinking just a few weeks into our future, what are you really looking forward to doing that you haven't been able to do during the shutdown?
Wow. Well, I think human nature is that we're social creatures, and we like to get together with people. I'd certainly like to go and see my parents and my family, that are I've got UK family. I'd love to go and see them. Love to give my mom and dad a hug, frankly. I'd like to give my neighbors a hug too. I mean, you know how that is, right? Everybody is 6 feet apart. That feels very strange. So I think there's, I'm looking forward to just getting back to that social normality.
So I agree with you, and I heard the underlying message of what you were just saying. And Tom, I'm looking forward to hugging you too. I hope it happens soon. Tom, thanks so much for giving us a few minutes today and sharing your insights and perspective. Really looking forward to having a moment to meet up with you again face to face, and presuming we can get back to something like what we used to know, and maybe even better. So thanks so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Alma.